go say hi to her?
Huh.
Oh man, it's the Vault Hunter! You are awesome! Didn't you fight Pteramorphus? I fought a big creature like that once. He was a big whale squid with 100 tentacles. You ever fought anything with tentacles? Oh, of course you have. Pteramorphus had tentacles, how silly of me. Now, where was I?
I am so sorry.
All right, the whale creature. His name was Blowhole the Apocalypse. I called him the Apocalypse for short. And he attacked my hometown of Tsunami's Edge when I was but a little girl. You ever been to Tsunami's Edge? Great town, nice beaches, great food, and the cost of living is just so low. Even being a single grandmother and working part-time at a skag meat processing factory, I was still able to provide for little Mr. Torgue. We may not have been able to afford the finer things in life, like food, but we got by. After all, Mr. Torgue and I didn't have anything but one another after that horrible gas leak blew up the iridium mine, killing my son and his lovely wife. From that day onward, my little Mr. Torgue vowed to conquer explosions themselves in an effort to avenge his fallen parents, and... Oh man, I forgot what I was talking about. Where was... Oh right, the Blowhole the Apocalypse! So anyway, I was wrestling Blowhole to the ground, and I had my bicep curled around his blueberry throat. Blueberry? Sorry, I meant to say blubbery. I've got blueberries on the brain, I guess. I grow them in my backyard. Mr. Torgue helped me plant them. Thanks again for that, grandson.
I love you, Grandma!
Anyway, I have my bicep around his blubbery throat, and Mr. Torgue starts crying because he really likes whale squids, and he doesn't want to see me hurt one.
They are the princes of the ocean!
So I let the whale go after giving it a punch in the eyeball so he'll remember me, and it swam away into the ocean. And then I had Mr. Torgue drive me to the ice cream parlor. He got me Rocky Road, because Rocky Road's my favorite. I still miss Beasto sometimes. He just died of old age. Rats don't live much longer than a few years, but I treasured the time we had together. Oh, poor Mr. Torgue. When Beasto died, he cried for a week. The kids made fun of him at school, but I told him not to pay them any mind.
Being in touch with your emotions is not a character flaw!
That's right, High Five. Is something wrong? You look confused, Vault Hunter. Oh, you probably haven't heard anyone call Mr. Torgue High Five before. The world may know him as Mr. Torgue, but the Flexingtons always referred to him using his middle name. It's a Flexington family tradition, after all, to use your grandfather or grandmother's name as your own middle name. And my husband, High Five Flexington, God rest his soul, was the best grandfather Mr. Torgue could have asked for before he passed. He taught Mr. Torgue dang near everything he knew about firearms. Without High Five's teachings, I don't think the Torgue Corporation would exist at all. Gosh, I still remember the first gun Mr. Torgue tried to make after his parents died. A Jacobs shotgun with a stick of dynamite attached to the barrel. Torgue nearly blew his face off, but he got up, dusted his mustache off, and swore that by the time he reached the age of 11, he would make a gun that fired explosions without killing the operator. And by golly, he did! It took a couple of dozen prototypes before he got the right combination of gun parts and explosives right. But once he did, woo-wee! I'll never forget the plume of smoke that used to be my neighbor's homestead. They were jerks though, so it's okay. You're even more attractive than Mr. Torgue said you were. I've got another story for you, but I'd like to tell it to all of your friends at once. An old lady like me has to save her voice, you know. Mr. Torgue was so scared of trying to get a date for such a long time. He used to go to parties in high school and just stand in the back without talking to anybody.
I am an introvert!
I tried to tell him, I said, don't worry about chasing love. If you chase your dreams, then love will follow. See, that's the thing people don't get. You watch Echo films and they're just awful. They teach you that the only way to be with someone is just to pursue them over and over until they decide they like you. In reality, you know when you like someone almost immediately. You can't really convince somebody to fall in love with you. You just look like a stalker. But if you do things that you're interested in, like making guns that explode or killing mercenaries, then people will see that confidence and skill you have and they'll be attracted to it. But there's always a fine line between that kind of confidence and narcissism, you know? There's nothing worse than somebody who wants to be famous. I remember when Mr. Torgue first sold his weapons tech to that board of directors, he was pretty egocentric for a while. Taking pictures of himself and posting them to the EchoNet all the time. Trying to hobnob with every celebrity that used his weapons. He came back home one day with a supermodel under each arm, and I said, Mr. Torgue, what are you doing? You've lost sight of who you are. It's been weeks since you actually created a new gun, I said. And it was true. He'd been more obsessed with being well known for doing something great than with actually doing something great.
It was a dark point in my life.
Thankfully, Hi-5 listened to me and got to work on what would eventually become the Kerblaster. You a fan of the Kerblaster? That was always my favorite. That and the Flacker, which I know a lot of people hate. But there's more to combat than just brute efficiency in this old lady's eyes. Style counts for something. And there's nothing quite like filling the air with tiny little explosions. It's like a fireworks show, except the deaths aren't as sad and unexpected. Mr. Torgue tried to be vegetarian once after he saw a fluff bear get run over by a truck. How long did you last again?
12 seconds!
Barely even finished the word vegetarian before he lunged at a skag chew I was holding in my left hand. Nearly lost a finger. Granted, he's always been partial to skag chews or skag bacon. Don't know why, since I always felt like skags tasted like old tires and vomit. But to each his own. Taste is a funny thing. People say your taste buds get more refined as time goes on, but they actually get worse and worse. So when Mr. Torgue used to refuse vegetables as a kid, it's because he was actually tasting how awful they were. When we old folks eat vegetables, we're only okay with it because we can't taste all the gross vitamins and stuff. Granted, vitamins are what have kept me going for as long as I've been going. You get enough B12 in your system and you can headbutt a freight train without so much as a bruise. Thank you so much! I'll eat this later while sitting by the fireplace telling Mr. Torgue stories of days gone by. There's just nothing like a good roaring fireplace, is there? Something healing and safe. Maybe that's why our family likes explosions so much. They're basically just big fireplaces. Every explosion feels just like coming home. Oh, maybe that'd be a good slogan for the Torgue Corporation. Don't you think, Hi-5? Oh, don't be silly. It's a wonderful slogan and you know it. I used to come up with slogans for a living when I was in my teens. I came up with the jingle for Professor Gunsight's Can't Miss Scopes. How'd it go again? Oh, yeah! If you try to shoot but you miss a lot, then give Professor Gunsight Scopes a shot. And then they played a gunshot sound effect and someone going, ah! It was cute. But gosh, I've been talking for a while now, haven't I? Thanks for bringing your friends to listen to an old woman ramble for a while. I can't tell you how great it is to have somebody new to talk to, especially a vault hunter. Oh, and one more thing. No, actually, that can probably wait. Just something about vaults and the end of the universe. Anyway, here. I always spoil my friends, just like I spoiled my grandson.
Nice.
Enjoy it! Conversation!
Remember that time we all played bunkers and badasses together? I will treasure that moment forever!